So delighted to be joined today by Simon Morris. Simon, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Listen, it's a good privilege to have you back in. Thank you. We were doing some name dropping before, and you mentioned kind of the people you work with, kind of Murdoch, Bezos, Branson. Alongside that, you've worked and you've started up some of the most incredible companies.
Mm.
Are there links between personalities of people and businesses?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I learned from Branson and his brother-in-law, Robert Devereux. You know, they said to me once, "Look, if we this is how old I am. Right? It takes you back to the 90s. If you remember the Levi's commercial,
Yeah. Now I'm both showing our old.
That was set in a laundrette, and they said to me, you know, if Virgin started a laundrette, everyone in the company and all the consumers out there would automatically have a very similar picture of what that laundrette looks like.
Mm.
You know, it would have MTV, it would have subsidised washing powder,
Yeah.
it would have people that come and do additional services. And that always struck me. You know, that was a company and a culture that knew itself, knew its identity, knew what it stood for, both internally and externally. When I went to Sky was going through a transformation, and you know, when it first started, people used to rather rudely refer to it as council house TV, and I think British culture was very afraid of it. And then Murdoch came in arguably his prime and transformed entertainment, and I was really, we knew that our job was to disrupt, to disrupt at scale. So I was very happy to be involved in boxing's my passion. We did the world's first, the UK's first pay-per-view boxing event. We did an IPO. We were really sticking it to the establishment, and the sort of 1970s punk rocker in me. You know, I used to have blonde hair and an earring. Loved that.
Yeah.
I've always loved disruption. I've always loved consumer-sided businesses that are saying, look, the status quo, we don't like it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, some of the proudest things I did at Sky were transforming Sunday afternoon TV, going back to when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon was 2 channels, songs of praise,
Yeah.
get ready for school. You know, you get that sinking feeling. I still get it. I go back to work, right? So we transformed Sunday night viewing, and we put The Simpsons on in what we called the God slot.
Yes.
I'll probably pay for that. We challenged that and said, look, Sunday evening is a last hurrah for entertainment. And I love that. And it made me think big. It made me think about execution. And it made me, I've always lent into businesses and organisations that are disrupting and challenging.
How do you know, like, a business that talks about disruption or change? How do you know the difference between someone who talks about it or a business that talks about it to someone who actually wants to do it? Are there traits for you that you see?
You know what? I wish I could tell you I had a magic analytical tool that told me that. I've got a compass, I've got an intuition that I've realised. I've got many weaknesses in life. Failed my maths O-level 4 times, went on to become an entrepreneur. I'm a creative and an entrepreneur. I'm colourblind, you know, born colourblind. It's a massive weakness when you're grading films and when you're, you know, some of my films are pretty scary as a result. But what I've learned to trust my intuition. There's a fantastic book about the All Blacks called Legacy. Why the All Blacks are so good in business.
It's an amazing book.
And they speak within that about how their win ratio over 100 years is down to a few things. One of those things is a clarity of an ability to visualize, pre-visualization. I've got a tool within me that whatever business environment I'm encountering, if I can see it, I can move heaven and earth to get to that vision. If I can't see it, I struggle. I may have to then go and do some work until I perhaps do see it. But to answer your question, I've just known. I've had a gut feel, and I've spoken to other entrepreneurs about this. You know, people in the property sector, people in the finance sector, they've got a strong internal compass, intuition that they know how to harness.
And do you think everyone has that, but people are scared to do it, or do you think actually it's certain type? It's just a trait you have.
I don't know,
Okay.
but I do know it's a tool you can develop.
Right. Okay.
I do know that it wasn't as strong in me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was a working class kid in South London. You know, none of my family had ever been on to do a higher education. None of my family. I had an uncle that was a professional, was an office worker professional in advertising, and a gun went off in my head at 10, 11, that I didn't want to follow suit and live my life in South London, and so I learned from there on in to follow my judgment, and I was drawn to music, I was drawn to rebellion, I was drawn to different ways of doing things. I realised that you can be paid to be creative. Oh my goodness, that was a revelation, and you could develop a business along those lines. So, and I think that I had a fire in me from day one. And then I had the tool, the gift of visualization, and the intuitive tool that goes with that I developed over time, to the point now where it's almost binary. You know, as I get towards, I'm close to the end of my career by a long chalk than I am to the beginning, and now I don't waste any time. I don't allow myself the luxury of wasting time on something. If I can see it, I move towards it, I go for it. And I operate in a modus operandi now where I think about three lenses. Is what I'm doing something that I love? Am I passionate about it? Am I creating? I've got a TV series that's in development, which I'm really excited about. I'm a governor of the Museum of London, which is hard work, unpaid.
Yes.
But it's legacy. Yeah. It's London, the city I love. It's culture and entertainment and history. Things that I'm really passionate about, and I think it's for good. That building will be standing long after I'm gone. So passion, is it for good? And more importantly, I think we're all beholden to do good things within our community. So as a function of my history, I volunteer in the prison system. So, and I've done that for 16 years. That's about me putting back in my immediate community. Yeah. But I do believe my skill set applied to something that's for good, where my skill set is growing businesses, disrupting, scale, achieving, moonshot goals. If I can apply that to something that I really care about, that's a really good use of time. And then the third area, which I can sound quite mercenary, but I do think about things through the lens of, is this going to give me a good return on my time? Especially if you're a salesman, and I'm a salesman in the broader sense of the word. If you're a salesman, the easiest person to convince is a salesman, right? So I can get attracted to things, and I can go down, disappear down a rabbit hole. It's really easy in life and in business to become a busy fool. Yeah. So those are the three lenses that in the latter part of my life and career that I really, really focus on. I'm like, do I really care about this thing? Is it for good? Yeah. Is it going to give me a good return on my time, a valued return on my time? And I'm quite hard about those things.
Actually, so let me kind of, because you're also very open about your personal journey and stuff that's happened to you through your life. Those three things that you talk about, do you think that's been driven by your work experiences, by kind of your personal experiences, or like a mixture?
We're shaped by our experiences, aren't we? I mean, in my case, I was. I look back on it now and I realise I come from a family of addicts and alcoholics. I realised from a very early age I, had challenges with addiction, whether it was OCDs or sugar addiction or very fear driven as a kid. And in later life, that, especially after I'd had some success, that really fell off a cliff. Or is that a good analogy? that really took off.
Yeah,
My addictive personality really took off.
Yeah.
Part of it is I'm a workaholic, non-stop. I'm incredibly driven. But ironically, as I say, after I had some success, where I don't even know, I'd probably I'd give a good psychologist a field day. Maybe it was to do with a sense of achievement or something, and then some sort of sense of disappointment in that achievement. I got to the top of the hill that I thought my childhood and teenage life is where I wanted to be. It wasn't quite what I wanted. And I'm really open about it because I find, particularly when I talk, particularly in public speaking, particularly in business, addiction is a problem that affects everyone in this country. If you drop a pebble, imagine the dropping a pebble into a pool, the ripple effect of that, the ripple effect of someone struggling with drug addiction, behavioural problems, alcohol addiction, is profound. And if you put all of those pebbles dropping into all those poles, most of the country has got knowledge of someone with mental health, knowledge of someone with addictions. And what I've really learned is the opposite of destructive addictive behaviour is not the obvious solution. So the opposite of being an alcoholic is not sobriety. That's a side product of re-establishing connection. So the central problem with addiction in people is a loss of connection. They've lost the connection with themselves. They've lost the connection with people and the world around them. They've lost their connection to the world at large. So fear-centric lack of connection is what you've got to re-establish. And my story, I can't tell you my business story. I can't tell you my life story without the two things being inextricably intertwined.
I was going to ask one last question, but I've got to ask one question before my last question, which is, off the back of you talking about connection, what's then your position or your view on the digital world we live in today and the fact that kind of young people, generations coming through, almost to some extent they're less and less connected because they're more connected?
Yeah, it's not the right. It's a surface level connection. Someone sitting on a screen for 23 hours straight is not connecting. That's a problem. They're not truly connected. If they're connecting with the world, they'd have balance. They'd have balance in their life. Obviously, given my history, I was an early pioneer in the .com, UK .com world, and have built my life in physical goods, in gaming, going to digital goods. I've built, when we launched Sega, I remember there was an article in The Sun about Sega killed my son. And, was a pretty traumatic. It was one of those things you look back in your career and go, that was a pretty tough time for us to get through. I think I'm obviously a massive supporter of innovation and progress in the digital world. I'm drawn to my immediate reaction to what AI can do and the tools of AI, and experimenting with how we can make the creative process that much more effective, allowing humans to do what they do. Humans do the compulsive lateral thinking, that spark of thought that, is just a delight, always makes me really excited. I think if I'm creating a standard website, I should get AI to do that. That's not a good use of a creative, compulsively lateral thinking human mind. That's the job of AI. So I've faced that challenge in every aspect of my career, the threat of digital. I think it's had a generational profound effect in a negative sense on a younger generation, particularly. I'm really worried about teenage and male suicide figures on the rise. I think it's part of a bigger problem. I don't think you can lay the doorstep just at overconsumption with in a digital world, whether it's social platforms, whether it's streaming, whether it's games or whatever it is. That speaks to a much bigger contemporary problem that's going on.
Let me ask my one last question. It's my frivolous question because you've worked with amazing brands and genuinely like somebody. What's one brand that you wish you would have worked, that you wish you would have been part of the journey on, that maybe you missed out?
There's a few. been a secret admirer of Apple from afar, but at an earlier stage.
Yeah.
I think but I think I probably scratched that itch at Amazon when I became part of, Amazon acquired. I was a co-founder of a business called Love Film,
Yes.
which Amazon acquired and then turned that into Prime Video. And then I spread my wings within the business and became chief creative officer across all of the business. That was a hell of a ride.
Yeah.
That was an incredible 10-year period of stellar growth. I think, in all honesty, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a doctor.
Yeah.
And I was too troubled, too naughty, not academic enough, and had a bit of a chip on my shoulder about that. The organisation that I really admired was Médecins Sans Frontières, who are people who've committed, given their, to become doctors to help and to heal.
Yeah.
And wherever war zones are at their worst, they go.
Yeah.
When others are fleeing, they're going
going.
in. And that is an organisation in some way, shape or form that I wish I could have had some involvement in.
Fun. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure.
Thanks
Thanks for having me.
No worries. Cheers.